Today is a big one. I've got the privilege of having Binh, a man that I highly respect and look up to. And I think one thing I've come to appreciate about you is you've been very, very consistent. I met you back in 2009, and I think your business was about 3 years old and a few people in, and you're still here, which is agency what is like dog years. Before I delve into your story and what you really, really do, I want to sort of look at where you are right now versus where you started with the business. So when I met you back in 2009, this was fairly small. And then you look back right now, you've got a fairly big agency, lots of really big clients, flying across the stage, educating people, sitting on the board of advisory of UNISA or MBA, EO, and a whole bunch of other stuff. If you had to look back when you started the business to where you are right now, what have been some of the biggest mindset shifts that you've had to make to get your business to this stage? If you had to sort of compare the Binh then and the Binh now, what's the biggest thing that have shifted? Shift that you've had to make to get to that transition?
I think the biggest shift has been shifting the focus to people. So I started off as a technician.
Yeah.
And then I went into shifting that focus into processes and systems and whatnot, into strategies. Well, first, before strategies, I even looked at tactics. And a lot of my time and my focus, my energy was around tactics, and I went to strategy. And now all of a sudden, you get bigger and bigger, and you realize it's the people that matters the most. And you want good people around you. You want people that understand a lot of these things, and a lot of the times you want people that understand these things a lot better than you do. So then you shift your responsibility away to being almost like a coach of a sports team. I used to think of the company as a family. Now I think of it more like a sports team, because a sports team does things with high performance. A high performing sports team has a lot of strict guidelines, frameworks that allow that high performance to happen within that culture. And I think of myself now more like, okay, how do I become the best coach? So we've already got really, really good athletes inside the team. How do we get the best out of them and allow them to perform at their highest?
Yeah.
So that's the biggest shift, I think, from then to now.
Awesome. All right, let's go a little bit way back, right? I always like to understand the entrepreneur behind the business, because so much of who you are as a person, your story, your upbringing has a very big bearing in terms of what you bring to the business and how you tend to approach life in general. Well, I would love to know about a little bit about your childhood and how that has influenced the way you approach business and in your career.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're in Australia now for this.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if your audience are all Australians, but I was never born in Australia. I was born in Vietnam, and I came here when I was in 1991, when I was just about turning 8. But when I was born in Vietnam, we were a victim of the Vietnam War. And so there's a lot of bombing, a lot of killing going on, a lot of terror. And as a result, my dad used to be very high ranked in the Vietnam police force. But back then we were still colonized by the French. And so when Vietnam fought to fight for the country back, if you weren't a friend, then you were an enemy. And so as a result of that war, we kind of lost everything. By the time that I was born, my dad was put into prison because he tried to help the people escape the country. And he was caught. And so he was put in prison for the majority of my childhood, even to the point where my 3 brothers came to Australia in 2 different trips as refugees.
Oh.
Imagine when you're 14 years old. One of my brother back then, he was 14 years old, didn't know anything, was asked if he wanted to get on the boat, thought that he's going to go back home for dinner that night, jumped on the boat and then just sailed off to, they didn't even know where they were going to. And all of a sudden he looked back, he's like, I'm never going to see my family again. But that's how my family, my brothers came over to Australia first. They came in 2 different trips through refugee camps. And then they worked hard to save up and sponsored the rest of the family over. But when they sponsored the rest of the family over, the problem was my dad was still in prison. And so we had to bribe the guards to let my dad visit the family for the weekend. And we escaped to Ho Chi Minh City. We hid there for a few months. Not sure we were going to get our visa accepted. So it was a very difficult time at the time. I was very young. I was 7, turning 8. I didn't quite understand a lot of that until now. My dad just passed away last year. And as my dad passed away, I got to understand more and more about the past, more and more about his past. And I understood why he was so strict in our upbringing back in the days. But all of that has shaped the way I am today. And a lot of my leadership style, I think I learned a lot of that from my dad. So we've got a very big family. We've got a family of 10 children. Wow. But within the family, everybody truly respects my dad, And in the community that he serves in the Catholic community, everybody respects him in that community as well. And it made me see that, and he says this all the time, respect is not something that you demand, it's something that you earn.
Yeah.
And you can see that the way that he earns his respect is by treating other people really, really well. And people want to give their time back, their energy back to help him. And I think just from observing, witnessing that, has shaped my style of leadership today, in that it's more, let's do good for people, and you do it consistently enough, you build that trust, people want to help you back, and they truly respect you. They want to be there, even through the good times and the bad times, not just through the good times. Yeah. And I think that's really shaped my style of leadership today, and the way I go about in terms of business and life.
Oh wow, that's what a story. So I want to think of, like, you arrive. Obviously, it's a bit difficult to settle, new country, learning new culture. What was the experience like growing up in Australia in the 90s? And how did that prepare you to? I mean, were you was this business thing a thing for you when you're a kid growing up? Were you one of those lemonade stand kids or the little hustler who goes hustling around? Is there something about your experience growing up in Australia that prepares you to finish uni and go into business?
I'd call myself an accidental entrepreneur. Okay. Whether it's intentional or not, I don't know. But I think I was put into the circumstance, an environment where I had to make ends meet. I had to make money in order to have everything else that everybody else had. And so by the time we came over to Australia, my parents were already, they couldn't speak a word of English. So to find a job was extremely difficult. By then they were already at retirement age or close to retirement age. So they didn't really work when they came to Australia. And because of that, we were never raised in a privileged environment. We didn't really have any money. And so I was always taught that whatever you needed, whatever you wanted, you'd have to earn that yourself. So my very first car that I got from my brother was like an old Holden Camaro. And he tried to give it to me, but I said, no, I'm going to buy it from you. So he sold it to me for $200. My second car I bought for $500. Then I bought a $1,000 car, and then a $1,500 car, and eventually I made my way up high and high and got to a car that I drive today. But just being through that environment, you learn to make or to earn whatever you wanted. And so the earliest example of what I can think of in terms of entrepreneurship back in my childhood was when I was in high school selling firecrackers.
Okay.
So it's not allowed in school, but being from an Asian heritage, I could get access to that very easily, and I knew people that had license to buy firecrackers. Now there was a big demand, huge demand, and a big gap in the supply chain. So I almost had monopoly in our school At first, we had like 2 or 3 different suppliers that sold firecrackers. All the kids wanted it. But I learned very quickly that in order to be really, really, in order to grow the firecrackers business, you really want to get out of just the market that you were working in. So at first, when I started, we were mainly selling to friends who were mainly Asians, Vietnamese, because it's very easy to build that trust. But then a lot of the Australians, the Greeks, the Italians, they wanted the firecrackers too. And so I gave a lot of free trials.
That's cool.
I gave firecrackers away. I let them try it. And any time that, if you ever lit up a firecracker that came from me, and it didn't work as intended, I would always give them another one. And they will always, I wouldn't ask them a second question. I'll just give them another one, a replacement. And it's almost like a guarantee that they'll know that if they're getting it from Binh, they're gonna be looked after. To a point where there was one time there was a student during lunchtime. He lit up a firecracker, but he's a very, very well-behaved student, strict parents, and the teachers heard it, and the teacher came and said, "Who lit up that firecracker?" You could look at the face of that student, and you could see that he was really, really scared. So I stood up and I said, "I lit it up," and I took the blame for him. And so I got attention for it and everything. But from that act, the word spread around the school saying, "Hey, Binh's a cool guy. He'll look after you." And so a lot of people just trusted me to buy firecrackers from, and knowing that I would never dob them in, knowing that I'll do the right thing by them. And that's how it grew. And then I looked. We started growing that from, first we just bought like single firecrackers. Then we realized the power of volume discounts. So we started buying like whole strings of firecrackers. We disassembled them and sold them separately, and we were getting much better margins for it. And then we realized, there's other markets out there in that there's other students from other schools that wanted firecrackers. So, it grew in popularity. Until the schools at one point they started really, really cracking down on people supplying firecrackers because it was not a good image to the schools. But that's probably my first experience of a business and being in entrepreneurship.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. So you already knew distribution, customer loyalty, after sales support,
risk reversals, lost leaders, and all of that without, not intentionally. It was just like trial and error. You just did whatever, and whatever worked. But then now that I understand business a lot more, I realized there's actually terminologies for all of these things. Back then, as a student, as a 15, 16-year-old student, you didn't really understand any of this stuff. It's like, it's making money. It's good. It's supporting my life. So
that's it. Was it profitable? Or was it?
It was very profitable. Extremely. Our margins were very, very high. I wish we could be in business now with that kind of margin.
Get back to that'll be interesting. Famous Adelaide entrepreneur starts firecracker selling business in high schools. Maybe you should find a kid that is doing it and just be a silent investor.
We should have found an army of salespeople, distribution channels, right?
Proper distribution.
That would grow a lot quicker.
No, that's exciting. And how does that transition? Why an agency of all the other businesses when you started out? Like, what are some of the circumstances and situations that got you to get into the agency, start an agency?
So whereas when I started this business that I'm doing right now, which is the agency.
Marketees, good agency, by the way. Make sure you follow them up.
Marketees, guys,
Marketees, that's it. We'll link it up in the show notes. I
actually started another business before that. So before that, I was working multiple jobs while I was at school. So like I said, you have to earn what you wanted to get or what you wanted to buy. And so I worked at as a kitchen hand, earning $8 an hour. I worked at the lounge factory making lounges for my uncle during the weekend. I worked as a data entry operator. I worked at the farms, strawberry farms, grape farms, you name it. So multiple jobs.
I've done farming. I've done the farms.
Good fun.
Yeah,
you
good
have to
fun.
work
Yeah.
super early. By the
Yeah.
time you get home, it's like super late. And
Yeah.
you got to shower because
Yeah.
you feel like really dirty. And
Yeah.
it was good fun. Like
Yeah.
I quite miss those days. Don't know why, but yeah, I quite miss those days.
They were simple days, you know. You
They
didn't
were
have to
very
deal with all
simple
the
days.
complexity of what you have right now. But yeah. Mhm.
So during that time, there was one time when I had a data entry job, and I would go to school from during the day, about 9 to 4, and then I would do the data entry job from 4 to 12 midnight. And during that time, I saw a gap in the market where my whole life in Adelaide, in Australia, was around the Asian communities. And so I realized that, that there were a lot of the needs of the Asian community that was being unmet. That the only reason why it was unmet was because the suppliers that had the solutions were mainly the Western companies, and there was a big language barrier. And so I was studying computer systems engineering at that time. I was a little bit nerdy. I like to write scripts and codes myself. And so while I was working at the data entry job, I was also reading the PHP and MySQL for Dummies.
Cool.
So web design for dummies, those kind of books. And when I got home, it would be midnight, I'll be eating, and I would be coding all day till 3, 4 in the morning. And then I'll wake up and I'll go to university and I'll go to work, and then I'll go home and I'll do that all over again. But what I did was I created a search engine, and the search engine was fully searchable, and it was translated in the main Asian languages. And so I took that and I went to all of the small businesses around South Australia. We called it ADSA back then, which is the Asian Directory of South Australia.
Okay.
And I said, look, this is what I'm putting together. Here's the search engine. Here's a working search engine. I already put all of the data of whatever businesses I could find in the yellow pages. And I said, would you be interested in advertising in this? And they're like, well, that is really cool. Yes, put it together. And, for back then, I used to think $200 is a lot of money. Because I was making, all of my jobs, I was making like $8 an hour.
Yeah.
So $200 was a lot of money. And they're like, oh, yeah, put it together. We'll be very happy to be part of it. But then what I didn't expect was that they looked at their website and they're like, wow, this is a really, really good website. Who did it for you? This is back in 2004, okay?
Yeah.
So 2004, and they're like, who did this for you? And I said, oh, I created it myself. So then they started asking me if I could help with creating their company website. And this is, back then, a lot of businesses, especially in Australia, didn't really have a website.
Yeah, I remember those days.
It's very, very new.
Yeah.
So people wanted to get it some people just wanted to do it just to check off the list that, hey, we're a business, we've got a website. Some people just didn't understand the power of a website or the purpose of one. And then others wanted to be the early adopter and wanted to be ahead of the curve. But yeah, so we started creating websites for people. And then that completely evolved to what it is now today in terms of marketing. So we completely abandoned the idea of ADSA, only because at the time it was just myself. I didn't have any knowledge. I didn't have any network. I didn't have any understanding of running a business at all whatsoever. And that project is very, very large because we wanted to write full directory books that was distributed to all the main Asian groceries or the restaurants, etc., as distribution. And it was all translated to Korean, Japanese, Thai, Vietnamese, and Chinese at the time.
Oh, wow.
So it was a big project.
That would have been a big project back then.
Very, very big project. I didn't have the resources, but I saw that, I was getting good money just making websites for people. So I started doing that, and I focused so much of my time on that I didn't put any energy on the other one. And then eventually it grew into what it is now, which is Marketees.
Yeah.
Now, we don't do any web development at all today. But what's evolved is we've changed our business model around a little bit since then. But we pretty much service the same market, a similar market, to solve the same problem. We just do it differently.
Okay. There's a point you mentioned there that when you started, and that is something I can totally relate to as an immigrant, and a lot of immigrants, because you said when you started, you tended to focus mainly on like Vietnamese type, Asian type businesses, and I can totally relate because I know when you're starting out, you tend to start from a point of comfort or the people you know, and kind of that. What was the transition like to now? Because when I look at your portfolio, you got probably who's who of Adelaide now. At what point in time do you sort of now start to branch out, and what was the mindset? Because I think I'm saying that I'm only asking this question because there's a lot of people who are struggle to get beyond the bubble. You know what I mean? What was the strategy of getting out beyond that comfort bubble to start to go? Okay, all right, I've helped my people. Now it's time to go mainstream.
In 2006, we registered the business name for Marketers Digital, or Marketers Business Promotions, what it's called back then. And that's because we realized that the web design development side of things really took off. And being 2006, I would have been 23 years old at the time.
Yeah.
And being someone from a completely different country, not really knowing anything about business, very, very young, I thought to myself, hey, if I could find all the business organizations around my area, and I lived in Woodville at the time, Woodville Gardens. So the business organizations around my area was the Port Adelaide Enfield Council, that area. So I went on the internet and I started searching, and I found the Port Adelaide Chamber of Commerce, which is now the Todd Street Business Chamber, or Adelaide Business Hub, it's called now. And I just went there, and I just went to the general manager and said, hey, I'm starting this business. It's web design, web development. I'm new here. I just want to know what's happening in the business around here. And then I started becoming a member, and I took her out for coffee, and I just said, hey, here's what I found about your particular website. Here's all the great things. Here's all the bad things. Just left it at that. Offered to help wherever I can. She called me back after, and she said, hey, can you design us a new website? So I'm like, sure. I was going to do it for free anyway. They ended up paying us, like, for me, at the time, from my memory, they paid us $3,000, which is, for me, a lot of money at the
That's
time.
a lot of money back then.
As a 23-year-old, you're like, yeah, I've got a lot of money. I can go clubbing. I can, I can party, right?
I know, yeah.
But so I put a lot of effort into that, and they did a whole launch for their new branding, the new website. Got all of their members there, and said, hey, by the way, the guys behind this new website is Binh. He runs this business called Marketers Business Promotions. That's what it was called at the time. Hit him up for websites. And then I found that a lot of the members started coming to me for all the website design development jobs. So then I'm like, oh, this actually works. So I went to the Port Adelaide Enfield Chamber of Commerce and Kath Duncan and did her website. She paid us quite handsomely for it too, and then got all of their members, and then did the Holdfast Bay Chamber, did the Young Women's Chamber chapter, the Young Business Chamber, the Korean Chamber. I just started doing all this piggyback marketing. So they did a whole bunch of projects for the organizations, and just looked after them really, really well. So they ended up telling all of their members about us. And that's how we grew at the beginning, and we grew quite quickly at the beginning. We won the ANZ Business Award, and was basically this is how it's different. This is how I got my parents to support what I'm doing. So because they suffered a lot, right? They sacrificed a lot to get us to Australia. All they wanted to see was me completing my university. Unfortunately, I didn't complete university.
Oh, wow.
I quit university to go out and do my business.
Wow.
And that didn't sit well with them, especially my dad. So for some time, my dad was super angry. We didn't talk to each other for like 4 months. Even though we lived in the same house, we would avoid eye contact, and I would bring dinner into my room and eat. I wouldn't dare to face him. But I would just go out and I would just do this on my own. It was more so to prove to myself that I didn't need a certificate from uni in order to be successful in whatever path I choose. But also, first of all, I want to show myself that I can do it. And then two, I wanted to prove to my parents that I could do it.
Yeah.
And when we got so much traction in the first year, they started promoting the Port Adelaide area as a great place for business. And so they reached out to me and they said, hey, you've done really, really well. Can we use your photos to promote the local Port Adelaide place for business? And so they did the photo shoots, and then next minute I didn't realize, but I drove to work one day, and down Port Road and down Commercial Road was like flags of pictures of me all over Commercial Road, all over Port Road.
Oh, wow.
And there was this big billboard, and there was me on there. And I didn't say anything, right? I didn't tell my parents. But one day my parents' friends came over, and they said, is that your son all over Port Road, all over Commercial Road? And they're like, what are you talking about? So they asked my brothers and sisters, and then they found out that, I'm everywhere. And then that's when they saw, there's some merit to what I was doing. Now they're the biggest supporters, but at the time they were very against me stopping university to go and do my own thing, because they only understood one direction to success, right? And that is going through uni, going through the corporate ladder.
Because it would have been harder. I mean, right now quitting uni is cool, but back in the early 2000s, and obviously coming from the background, that would have been something that we really frown about. So, and it looks like you when you got off the business, you had a clear strategy and it started to grow quickly. What are some of the initial challenges you start to see in the business in the very early stages?
In the early stages, I didn't understand business. I was very naive at the time. So I thought that, if you get more work and you get more people and the people can do the work, you're just going to keep growing. And so in my mind, it's a very simple formula. Get more work, get people to do it. You're going to make more money.
Make some profit.
And one day I'm going to be at the beach drinking my pina colada. That's the vision, right? And I remember there's nothing back then. I was like so naive back then. But you quickly run into problems. You quickly run into challenges. And as quickly as you grow, you drop just as quickly when you don't have the right systems, when you don't have the right processes, and when you don't have the right people. And at that time, I didn't understand any of that. So I was put into a position where we grew from just myself to myself and 4 people in that first year out of our Port Adelaide office. But we made a lot of mistakes along the way. And it got to a point where, I was struggling a few times during that journey. And it got to I was in a position where I had to understand business. I had to make it work because I'm not going to go back. I don't want to prove myself wrong, and I don't want to prove my parents wrong. I was stubborn. So I'm like, look, I'm just going to read up and teach myself as much about business as possible. I used to hate reading. When I was in university, I used to hate reading. But then when I did my own thing, I loved reading because I just enjoyed the topic. And so I became a student of marketing, and then I became a student of business. And so I read every book I could imagine. Since then till now, I've probably read hundreds and hundreds of business books. Some of that has stuck, some of that has not. But that has allowed me to, how everybody has their own sport? Well, business is kind of like a sport to me. I find it interesting. I love learning more about it. But that's allowed me to really change my mindset, my maturity, my philosophies around business. And now it's not just about me. It's about the ecosystem that I create that enables a business to thrive.
When you talk about the challenges, I would like to drill down a little bit because there's a lot of people who might be listening to this and maybe they're in that stage whereby they found those early successes, but things are now starting to fall apart. And I would like to sort of drill down in terms of like specific things that you're going through at that time, and how you are, I guess, how they made you feel and how you are addressing them. are you able to sort of talk about some of the challenges,
Sure.
some of the actual challenges, specific challenges that you're going through those early stages, especially growing too fast and things starting to sort of fall apart, or not fall apart for lack of a better word, but like that stage of early growth, and how you're approaching it.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I remember a couple of examples when our very first 5-figure website deal was a big deal for me back then, and we were talking about this back in 2006. I was very, very young, right? And we had capabilities in house, but we didn't have all the capabilities to do what was promised, to deliver on the promises of that particular project. So we started subcontracting certain parts of it, and we had so much work going left, right, and center. I said yes to everything at the time. I was very naive, like I said, very young. So I said yes to everything.
Yeah. You need to pay the bills one way or the other. You've got a few people from us to feed.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
And so the project management of that particular project, I kind of left it to somebody else to do. I didn't pay as much attention to it, and the project didn't go well, to the point where the client was very upset at us, threatened to sue us. We're like, look, we're just going to refund your money, which is a lot of money for me back then. Like, we're just going to refund your money, and just call it a loss. It was a big lesson for me that you can't be complacent, for one, and you always got to be on top of things. To make sure that you need the right people, the right systems, the right process, of course, but you also need to be at that point in time where I was in business at that time. I still needed to be part of it. I still need to be involved, and so I learned to become less and less complacent. I was also young, so during my youth, I made a lot of gambles. I'd say informed gambles, but still they're gambles nonetheless. And so I made a few things that have costed us a lot of money. One of the things that we did was we took out a third level of a big building in the Philippines.
Wow.
And completely decked it out. So I thought, we're going to create a Google of Philippines. Started renovating the place, make it really, really
was that
inviting.
Back then or listen?
This is way back.
Wow.
Way back then. I spent multiple 6 figures. It didn't work out.
Wow.
It didn't work.
Back in the, so you're looking at doing outsourcing before outsourcing was actually
Correct.
cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we started outsourcing. We started our outsourcing journey way early. We actually went a whole 180 degrees. We don't have anyone in the Philippines now, or anyone overseas to be for that matter. Our team are all Australia, mainly in South Australia, because I see the importance of collaboration, the importance of learning together. But anyway, spent multiple 6 figures, had 30-something people in that particular building working just for marketees. Was working for some it went well for some time, but then we did, like I said, we didn't have the right systems, we didn't have the right processes, and I took my eyes off it for too long. That things started breaking, and when things broke, it's like it was around the same time that Google also decided we're going to change our algorithm completely, and then what used to work back then doesn't work now, and so there's a lot of issues that came up around the same time, and we were forced to kind of shut that down, and it was hundreds of thousands of dollars just kind of put into this thing that we just we just have to let it go. Big lesson. I think if we do it now, we'll be a lot better because we're a lot more more mature both as a leader and as a business.
Yeah.
But we made a lot of mistakes along the way, and I think it's those mistakes were vital to our development. Because I think the feedback loop is what helped us to grow more and more as a person and as a leader.
Yeah. It's one of those things when I hear people make mistake, it's part of, that's your MBA, that's your tuition. So you might have Skyped uni, but you still had to pay for it one way or the other through the lessons. At what point in time do you start to do you start to sort of build that confidence? Do you start to feel like now things are taking shape? And what are some of the things you put in place for yourself, whether it's coaching or mentoring or organizations you start to join? At what point in time do you feel like, did you start to feel like, okay, this thing is working, we've made some of those initial mistakes, we've gone through that initial turbulence? At what point in time do you start to feel the confidence of, okay, we've got this now? It's kind of like, I always compare this whole business thing as, a plane take off, and there's a lot of turbulence, and then there's a bit of, you start to cruise a little bit before you go through another turbulence and then cruise. At what point in time do you start to now get things start to work? Yeah,
I'd say when we started investing a lot of time and money and energy into getting our training systems right. So there was 2 times that I could think of that really changed our business direction and made it more mature. One was I used to have an old client of mine. He's a really good friend now because we've traveled overseas multiple times together, and he's exited his business for a very, very good sum. He had like 200. He was in the allied health industry and had 200 therapists working for him. Sold to Healthcare Australia. Took his family, so his wife and 3 daughters, to 36 countries in 12 months.
Wow.
Just like loved his life. But he was always, the whole family was very adventurous, right? And one time I had my partner back then, who's my wife now. We went on holidays to, I believe it was Vanuatu, and we went for 3 weeks. And he said, "Binh, I just want you to do one thing. Leave your laptop at home. Turn off your phone and only put on the emergencies. Only use your phone during emergency. Don't want you to be connected at all for the 3 weeks. If you can do that and you come back, I'll buy you a ticket to anywhere in the world you want, you and your partner." I'm like, "No, you don't." I said, "Nick," which is his name at the time, "you don't have to do that for me. I'm going to take your challenge anyway." So leading up to that, knowing that I was going to be completely disconnected, it forced me to put in place all the processes so that things would run without me for the 3 weeks that I was away. And that was one of the big pivot points in the business. But then the second time was when COVID hit, and no one planned for it, right? It's like you can't plan for something like that. But some of our clients were either in the travel industry, they were the suppliers of those industries, or industries like hospitality, where it got completely shut down, got completely halted. And so we lost overnight a third of our clients because they just couldn't do business. No one was getting out of the house. No one was allowed to get out of their house. Now, we had a client that was like the Uber of driving lessons, basically. So connecting driving people that wanted to have driving lessons to driving instructors. And they weren't even allowed out of their house. So the whole business shut down as well. So we lost a third of our business just from that. And then the other third, we had to reduce our retainer fees because there was a lot of uncertainty around their business. All of a sudden overnight, their revenue dropped significantly. And so we're like, okay, it's not your fault. So we'll help you get through this hard time. So we dropped our retainer fees, our service fees for them. And so all of a sudden, overnight, we had significantly less revenue. We decided we're not going to let go of it. We're not going to fire any of our team. We're going to use this time to really, really build our induction program, our training program. So Marketers Academy was born from that. What used to take us 6 months for a new recruit to come into our business, be really, really trained up to a point where we're very, very comfortable with them working with a client's project without too much support or too much hand-holding. Now it takes us 3 weeks. So went from 6 months to 3 weeks because we really optimized that experience. Well, we just realized that we could give them a mentor during the early times at the company, give them a whole bunch of training. All our handbooks used to be printed out on pieces of paper, and we have a pretty young workforce. they're digital people, so they prefer like looking at the phone, the tablets, the laptops. So we transferred all of that information into digital. We transferred all of our training into digital, and now they could access it anywhere they want. And what we found is that people are actually going through the training during their commute to and from work, on the train, on the bus, and you wouldn't, like, you can't expect that, but they're just doing it because they wanted to, right?
Yeah.
And it's really cool to see. So getting the processes and the systems in place was one. The other one is realizing that I was the biggest bottleneck, just because like my resources were stretched. And so I was always the biggest bottleneck for everything. So when I realized that other people could do things a lot better than I can, at first, yes, they might do 70, 80%.
Yeah.
Give them that trust, give them that, allow them to make mistakes. But then after they get through that, the training wheels, they become better and better and better at it. And then they find their own ways they add their own spice to it. And they find their own ways of doing things better. And eventually now, I think a lot of the people at our company do, their areas of expertise, they can do that way better than I can. So realizing that shifted my focus away from, like I said, just seeing how we can focus on people. And so a lot of it at the beginning was about teaching them what to do. We then shifted over to how do you teach them how to think. So no longer it's about just what to do, but how do you make decisions, how do you think? And we created a whole framework around, okay, here's what you need to be thinking about when you're making these decisions. And if you can follow through this whole framework and you can justify it, it doesn't matter if the decision is bad or like it has a temporary loss. If you can justify it with that framework that we gave you, then we'll be okay with it. So then we started teaching them how to think. Then we created a leadership team. Now we have everything is pretty much structured. We've got a social committee, and the social committee does they plan a lot of social events. Last Christmas we went on a yacht and we cruised out to sea. Every single Christmas, it feels like every year we're doing things better and better, and we're always like, how are we going to top last year? And they'll always find a way to top it. We did a whole amazing race. Like we were split up into different teams and had different challenges to do. It was really fun. But then we also have like our end of month. So at the end of every single month, the whole company behind our office is like a bar called Fergs, and we would book that place out. And at the end, the last Friday of every month, we would go there. We would discuss what happened in the month, what were our wins, recognize the right people. Like people love recognition, they love trust, and we have quarterly business reviews, and then them between their own silos have regular meetings, weekly meetings, monthly meetings. But we do a lot of these things because now it's not just about me anymore.
Yeah.
I think of it in terms of like, now I've got three little children, a 5-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a newborn. And I think of creating a business or a legacy business much like creating kids, like people. I think of my children like, okay, when they're just born, they need a lot of hand holding. You got to teach them all the foundational things, how to talk, how to crawl, how to walk. At some point, they'll learn how to do all of that without you needing to assist them. So then you teach them what's right, what's wrong, what's all the values. And then at some point, they're going to move out of home and they're going to make they're going to have their own life. So I think the best creations are when it's not reliant on you. It has to have a life of its own. So you look at all of the biggest creations in the world, if it's legacy creation, God created the world.
Yeah.
They don't need, the world will evolve without God's interference. As humans, we'll evolve into something. So businesses should be like that. You teach them the values, you teach them the different frameworks, but then the leadership team will evolve, it will change. They will make decisions based on your values, and the company will completely evolve into something. Maybe you had this particular company, it will evolve to something completely different, and that's fine. I'm okay with that, as long as they're using the values to make those decisions.
How do you? I like the idea of the company will evolve beyond what you expected it. How do you reconcile between your vision and where the company where the company is heading, because like I said, the market, the company, the culture will evolve, but how do you balance that between you still got your vision, your values, and what you want to out of it, and making sure that these things are still aligned, I guess, because you're still the owner, I guess.
So the biggest thing as your business grows bigger and bigger, that communication becomes the most important thing. So yes, you have that vision, the mission, the values in your head. You have to communicate it regularly so that they know what they are. What we do is we have quarterly business reviews every single quarter. Last Friday, the next one is next Friday actually, but the last Friday of every quarter, we get together, just the leadership team, and we're an open book, so everybody actually knows the numbers, the finances, the numbers of every department almost, and different leaders have ownership of different metrics to grow. But strategy, I don't know if you read the book Playing to Win. Great strategy book.
Yeah, I've been recommended.
Yeah. So it's about where you're going to play, how you're going to win in that, what management capabilities do you need to put in place, etc., etc. But we got our guys to start reading that book, and it's like, okay, now here's my vision. I'm not going to tell you what the strategy. I'll give you my inputs in what I think the strategy is, but I want to develop that strategy together. And you already know where we're standing in terms of our retention rates, our revenue, our bottom line, top line, everything. You already also know about the time that it takes for a new recruit to be capable or competent to work on clients. You already know how long it takes for a client to go from inquiry to becoming a client, a signed contract. You've got all of that data in front of you. You tell me what we need to do to make that vision a reality. And our vision is very, very grand. We've got very grand visions. I understand that as it grows, it's just going to be more and more difficult to pass that down. And this has already happened, right? I said, I'm passing all of this information to you, and I'm trying to pass this information to the rest of the company, but it's easily missed. I need the middle managers to also pass it down, so that the whole company is communicated on this. I'm part of this group called the Industry Leaders Fund, and it's a fund put together to help the leaders of the state they provide scholarships to study everywhere, so all around the world. So later this year, I'll be going to Harvard and study there around business.
Awesome.
And it's funded by them. But the network in that fund is really, really strong. And just maybe 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, we went, as part of that group, we went into William Buck, and we heard the strategy of Codan, Red Arc, and Firecrackers. Now, here are three very different companies. One is a VC-backed company, one is a private company, and one's a NASDAQ-listed company. They're like 8, 9, and 10-figure companies, and they're talking about how they approach strategy, what the 10-year strategy is, how they're communicating, passing that down to the rest of the company. And when you've got thousands of people in your company, it's like, how do you pass that communication down to the thousands of employees? And so my mind has shifted to that now. My mind has shifted to, let's not think of us as a 30-people company right now. Let's work. How would we work differently if we had 1,000 people in our company? And how would we communicate that from top to bottom? And so now I just want to be able to provide the support mechanism for our people to thrive. Yeah. We provide a lot of training. We have a budget just for them to do professional development and train. We literally just yesterday enrolled 2 of our leaders into leadership training with the Chamber of Commerce, the SA Business Chamber. We're continually investing into our people, but we want to make sure that we equip them with the skills. I think they've got a really, really good. They've got really good values already. There's already a value alignment. Some of them still need to improve skills in certain areas that they weren't that they didn't have when they came into the company. So they might come in as a marketer, but then all of a sudden now they need to understand financial literacy. They need to understand operational excellence. They need to understand a whole bunch of other things around business. And so we're trying to train them in that.
That makes a lot of sense, because the next question I was going to ask you around that was, what's been your process of raising and building leaders in your team? What have you found better working for you? Is it raising leaders within the team, or bringing external people that have already got a proven track record elsewhere and integrating them in your team?
I've had a lot of thought about this, and there's pros and cons of each. I've come to the conclusion that it's actually better to promote internally if you can. So I've come to the conclusion that it's best to raise there's a saying that a rising tide lifts all boats, right? It's better to improve the skills of your current team, because they've already got that values alignment, and you know that the values alignment is there. But you get external professionals, external skills to come in and train the people in your team. So it's not rare. It's quite often that you'll find like an external expert in certain topics come into Marketing's boardroom and train our guys around leadership, around communication, around a whole bunch of different things, because we want that. And I've even gotten to a point where, our digital marketing manager, I am getting some part of the CEO Institute, and I got one of this CEO that I truly respect, and I asked him to mentor him and to mentor our digital marketing, my marketing manager. We're doing the same with like a CEO of a company that literally sold for $400 million, and he's someone that I think looks at strategy, looks at business. He has a very structured way of leading his team, and I'm finding that our guys just sitting down having coffees with these guys are learning a lot from them, learning a lot about our QBR structure has changed as a result. But just giving them that support and that environment where they can grow. I prefer having internal people, because I know that we're going to work well together. Build up their skill sets, and then bring in experts outside, so that it's a matter of we don't know what we don't know. So we need to bring experts outside to help them grow as a leader.
What's been your process of transitioning yourself from I don't know how to lead a team to now I'm a confident, capable CEO who can lead an organization? Because obviously the skills you had when you started and the skill you have now as a CEO of a company, I mean, I always find it funny, like most people will just start a company today and then register a Facebook page, start a website, and it's like, I'm a CEO, and I'm like, okay, maybe. But like, what's been your strategy? How have you grown yourself out as a leader? Because that's a big part. A lot of people struggle with transitioning, and especially now that your business is still growing. What are some of the pivotal things you put in place to help you level up as a leader?
Can I use profanity in here?
You can use any language.
Just do a lot of shit. Just do a lot of shit. So I grew because I make a lot of mistakes. And I'm a big believer in the rate of which you grow is proportional to the feedback loop. And the feedback loop only comes, there's a saying from, I think it's Malcolm Gladwell's book. He's the one that made it, popularized it, but it happened before. The actual origin of that is before that, but he popularized the saying that it takes 10,000 hours to master an art. Now, I don't think it's 10,000 hours. I think it's 10,000 iterations, because if you're doing the same thing over and over again, it's the feedback loop that you get that you start fine-tuning based on the feedback that you get. And so if you want to really, really grow, do a lot of shit, because then you'll get more frequency of feedback. And then you do bigger shit, because the intensity of that feedback becomes like, all of a sudden, if I stuff up now, I'm gonna put 1,000 people out of business. I'm gonna lose my house. Like, all of a sudden, when the stakes are a lot higher, the intensity of feedback is a lot stronger and it sticks a lot more. And so I think I've grown because in the last will be 20 years now in business, I've stuck at the same thing over and over, and I keep trying different things and I keep making mistakes, and all that feedback loop is making me better and better over time. And so that's what I discovered about myself. So I kind of provided that environment to all of our team members as well. So I allow them to make mistakes. I allow them to try their own things because I want them to have that feedback loop, the same feedback loop that I'm getting, that I used to get and still getting. And I make sure that, that they are equipped with the knowledge and the skill sets by bringing in external experts or giving them, buying them books or whatever that might be. Getting them into courses, training, etc. Providing that environment so that they can level up with the skill sets, but then giving them the trust and the autonomy to make their own decisions. And it's okay if they make mistakes, because that feedback loop, I think, is very important. That's why I feel like, we can only grow as quickly as our people. If we have people that leave, that have been with us for a long time, it hurts me a lot, because I feel like,
you've invested a lot. It looks like you've invested from the academy to mentorship to this. You've really invested a lot in your people, yeah.
But it pays dividends.
It does.
You may not see it straight away, but it will pay dividends long term.
Yeah.
And so I'm always looking at it from a long term point of view.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to dive back in is, so looking back now, you've had a lot of, obviously within your own network and within the different networks you're involved in, EO, the UniSA MBA program, and a few other things you've done where in the Leaders Institute. And I guess what I'm trying to say is you now have been able to look at leadership and leadership within a team and growing businesses, not just from your own, but looking at what other people are doing. What are some of the mistakes you're seeing people making that are stopping them from scaling their businesses, scaling their business to a certain level?
Okay. It depends on which level.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So the lower level, I see a lot of mistakes.
Maybe we can break it down to under $1 million, and then past $1 million, between the 7 figures and maybe beyond, because you've obviously had to interact with people at different levels. Including helping your clients as well.
Under $1 million, I'd say the biggest mistake is not letting go. So a lot of people think that they're the only ones that can do it, and they're not letting go. They don't trust their team to be able to, or empower their team to, if they have a team. And sometimes they don't have a team because they can't let go, right? But even like just the smallest thing, if you could delegate something that freed up half an hour of your time a day, that makes a huge difference. But I think the biggest mistake in people under $1 million is being able to let go and being able to trust other people to do the job. Between $1 million to 10 million, yes, there's still that trust. That is a big mistake, but not transitioning yourself outside into more of a coaching role, because I think by then you should be where leverage is in your people. Yes, some businesses have very little people, and they rely on tech, on software, and there's leverage there, which is awesome. You can leverage that, but for most businesses, the biggest leverage is in other people's time, not their own time. And what I see is that people just employ other employees to do the job without providing the trust, the autonomy, and the support that they need in order to not just do the job well, thrive at their job, but also have a continuous improvement, intentional continuous improvement program, so that they're not always stuck at the same spot. They're always growing. People want to see, people stick with their employers for a few different reasons, but one of the big ones is trust. They want recognition, and they want to know that there's career progression, career development. There's a clear path into where they can go, And if they ever feel like I'm stuck at this position forever, they're going to leave regardless. Yes, you still need to pay them properly, but past that, there's purpose, there's recognition, there's trust, there's career development. That's way more important than money, if you're provided you already pay them enough for them to, take care of their needs and their family's needs.
What about past 10 million? From looking at the people you worked with,
Then there's a leadership team.
Yeah.
So now it's like you're not looking at the bottom team, but it's the leadership team. Like you go to any of these companies that are 10 to 100 to a billion, 100 million to a billion is completely different again.
Yeah.
But I don't know that yet. I'm still talking to a lot of people that are in that stage, but still trying to figure it out themselves. So I haven't spoken to enough billionaires to know what the secret is. But I've spoken to a lot of 100 million, like people that started and run businesses that are doing hundreds of millions of dollars, and they're trying to figure it out. But what I've found is that the leadership team is the most important. So now it's like get really, really good leadership teams. They're the ones that are going to drive the growth of your company.
Yeah. You are in a business that is constantly changing, and we are about to hit another wave of disruptions and with AI and things like that. But I guess for agency, it's even more crazy because every time Google decides, I'm going to destroy all the marketers. Facebook decides, we're going to change, the ads that used to work. We're just going to crank up the cost and so on and so forth. What's been your strategy for making sure that you're able to keep up with all the changes? And unfortunately, with the industry, there's so many factors you cannot mitigate. Because if Google and Facebook and the big platforms decide to change things, but what's been your process to make sure you're able to sort of still be competitive, able to still deliver, maybe able to still be profitable, especially as your industry keeps?
I think if you're reliant on a third party, then you probably need to relook at your mission. So if your mission is around Google and it's reliant on Google or reliant on LinkedIn or reliant on Facebook, then that mission probably needs to be retweaked. Whereas if your mission is to empower companies to grow by making better decisions, whether that's marketing decisions, whether that's operational decisions, supply chain decisions, whatever the case is, then it doesn't really matter how you provide that solution. All of a sudden, digital is just a platform now. It's a channel, just like traditional TV, radio was, and you're not reliant on that particular thing. If that goes away, that's fine. Something else will come along that will allow you to create the same outcome for your clients that align with the mission that you've set out to do, right? And so I don't think of what we do as Google ads or SEO or Facebook ads. We don't think of that as that at all. Digital marketing has two terms: digital and marketing. A lot of people understand digital, they don't understand marketing, or they understand marketing, they don't understand digital. So you get the digital agencies that know what buttons to press, how to play how to work the system, how to work with the algorithm so that you could maximize the visibility, but they don't know all of the other areas of business in terms of, okay, is segmentation important? There's a lot of text in the past, the marketing text that says segmentation is not important, especially if you grow to a certain point. And the only way to grow market share from there is when you start targeting everyone. Otherwise, you can't grow market share. There's a truth to that, but then it also depends, because it depends on where you're at in business. If you're smaller, if you're in B2B especially, and you don't have that differentiation, you don't have that segmentation, it becomes very, very difficult to compete with the multi-billion-dollar companies that have unlimited budgets, right? And they're just going to shout louder than you can. And that's just a fact. And so understanding how companies grow, all the marketing principles is very, very important, and then how to apply digital to leverage that so that you've got more leverage and you can get in front of a much more difficult audience. Maybe it's the rural audience that typically has been difficult to reach out to. How can you leverage all of these tools that you've got available to get that particular outcome? And so I think in terms of the outcome and then all of the tools, all of the platform, all of the channels, that could change and that will change. TikTok may not be the most popular social media platform anymore, which is fine. That's not going to affect our business at all. It's, okay, how do we create the same outcome with the tools that we've got available to us, for us at that particular time?
That makes a lot of sense. So you're switching now, instead of thinking in terms of platforms and what's happening, you're pretty much going down to first principle and thinking, this is the outcome that the business wants. How do we give them that outcome using this set of skill set? And then in a way, you're almost making yourself platform agnostic in a way.
Yeah.
In a way, because if you think about it, like when you and I started into this industry, Facebook was just in the infancy. TikTok, all these things, they did not exist. I mean, I remember when, because I started doing web design just around the same time as you, around 2003 or 4. You know, back then it was really hard because you have to do everything by hand, and now there's all these fancy tools. And in a way, if you run a service-based business, it's very applicable advice, because, like I said, you always have to focus on the outcome that someone wants to get and not really hang on the process of how to do it. Would that be accurate? An accurate way?
Yes.
As I start to conclude, I wanted to sort of get your take, because you run a service-based business where a lot of it is based on, for lack of a better word, in terms of almost selling talent in a way. You're having some arbitrage between, you've got people who are very good, you work with them, you train them, you deliver a service, you get paid. What's been your, and I'm only talking, I want to ask this from a general service business point of view, what's been your approach of managing profitability? Do you bring in people before you get the work? Do you get the work and bring people? How do you project and plan? Because at the end of the day, you have to run a profitable business, and this applies to any service-based business. What's been your approach to planning and projecting so that you always make sure you're able to be profitable and still maintain that level of quality?
I smile because we did this poorly in the past.
Hi?
I smile because we did this poorly in the past.
Okay.
And in the past, it's like growth.
I'm doing that poorly now myself, so I'm keen to know for myself. Yeah.
For some time, we just looked at growth, and it was like growth just meant we increased our revenue every year on year, and we actually increased it 7 years straight, year on year. But then we realized, as I matured as a business owner, as I matured as if you want to call it an entrepreneur, you realize that there's different ways of growing, and structured growth, intentional growth, sustainable growth is a lot more important than growth at growth's sake. So we put together, we had to completely invest it. We invested a lot of money into updating our systems. When I say invest into updating our systems, I mean our whole CRM and basically all the back-end systems that run everything in our business has gone digital, but all of our time tracking is in there now. So now we've got very, very clear visibility and reporting around the profitability of not just from an individual's perspective, but from a departmental perspective, from an account perspective, from a service line perspective. We can see all of the time that's being put into there, how much is costing us, how much are we charging out, we're getting so much more visibility now. And the point I want to say around this is that the systems that you have, what got you to where you are now won't get you to where you want to be. And so you always have to upgrade those systems. Now we've changed our approach, in that we don't just employ when we see a really, really fantastic person. Back then, when we see a really, really talented person, we're like, oh, we can't let go of this person. We can't lose this person to our competitor. Let's just employ, even though we may not need it. We'll find enough work for them. And somehow we would. Eventually we would find work for them. But from a profitability point of view, it takes some time to get them to that point of profitability, right? And it just wasn't good on cash flow. And that's okay when you've got, a dozen people But when you've got a lot more, when it's multiplied many, many times, all of a sudden the cash flow pressures that you feel is much more significant. And so you got to do things a lot more structured.
Yeah.
And so now it's like, okay, when we have enough work, yes, we're creating talent behind the scenes, but it's only when we know we've got enough work that we bring them in. We're not going to bring them in more prematurely like we did before.
Is it a case of you having these conversations with people before they ever coming? Is it like are you building a pipeline of people before you ever bring them in, having those kind of conversations, passively recruiting? Or how does that look like from a practical point of view?
We've got different recruitment strategies.
Yeah.
Very obvious one is just to post it on classified ads, so like Seek job boards basically. That's when like we really need someone quickly, and we're just putting it out to the market and see what talent is out there. We've gone through multiple times through recruitment agencies as well when we really need that talent, and we just don't have the resources at the time to do a lot of those interviews and whatnot. But then at the same time, we've also partnered with a lot of the educational institutions. So we've got strong partnerships with UniSA, Adelaide University, Flinders University, Kaplan Business School, like basically a whole bunch of different tertiary education institutions. And they do a lot of the filtering for us, and they go, I've got this great student, they've done marketing, they've studied marketing, and they're in their last year, they've only got 3 more months to go. Do you have an internship opportunity for them? We would bring them in, take them through the whole Marketers Academy. It's something that we invested heavily in, and get them to present back to us in terms of what they learned. So we'll give them an existing client, and we go, okay, we want you to audit, based on what you've learned, we want you to audit this particular project, this particular account, and then you present it back to us. And during the presentation, we're looking at 4 different levers, different pillars to assess their readiness of whether they're ready to work at Marketers or not. But then it allows us to, 1, see that they understand the concepts, 2, be able to apply it into the real world, 3, be able to communicate that, because communication is very, very important for us. But it allows us to assess different areas of their skill sets and go, okay, this person scored a 19 out of 20, really, really good. We should look at seeing how we can bring that person in. This person scored 14, maybe they need a little bit more time.
Okay.
Bring them back. Here's some things that you need to improve on. If you can improve on those things, come back to us. So we do that. So we've got like different we always have kind of like a I don't want to say supply chain production line.
No.
We've got
makes a lot of sense.
We've got a whole process of building up talent, creating skills, creating talent.
Someone's come up with a fancy word, talent pipeline. Just as you've got your typical sales pipeline, you almost always having a sales pipeline. What's been your approach as we start to come to an end? What's been your approach with? Obviously, there's finding the right opportunities, but then at the end, finding opportunity, and that comes down to sales and marketing and how you put yourself out there. But I think one thing that people equally struggle with is picking the right opportunities, whether it's the right kind of clients that are going to help them grow the business. When you're starting out, you're like, what's the criteria? Have you got a pulse and have you got money?
That's true. And that's the mistake we made earlier on, right?
Come through. How has that approach changed in terms of picking the right opportunities? One other thing I like about it, you've got a lot of really good case studies of clients across the state. What's been the approach to picking the right opportunities that are actually able to give you the right kind of exposure, the right kind of profit margins, and making sure that you're able to pick the right projects that are profitable for you, and you can knock off the park and stuff like that?
I think it's super important. It's probably more important to know what to say no to.
Yeah.
Than it is to know what to say.
How do you say no? What do you know to? How do you know how to say what to say no to? Especially sometimes because you look at certain projects and you're like, ooh, that'd be a really nice project. That'd be really exciting.
Well, we've turned down like huge companies just because it doesn't align with the mission that we set out to do. And part of that mission statement involves ethical businesses providing ethical products and services to impact the world for the better. And when it comes to like anything in the gambling or adult industries where we just don't feel that what they're creating is positively impacting the wider community, we've just turned them down. We've turned down casinos, we've turned down like largest adult sites, because when we did more largest dating sites, because when we did more research, we saw that it was breaking up a lot of families. So we just didn't want to be part of that. Right? So yes, there's the values that drives the direction, but also when it comes to filtering, so we've got this exercise that we do, which is called the Perfect Partners, and it's basically a 4-quadrant matrix, and it looks at, okay, what are the returns or the value of that particular client? Is it high or low? What are the efforts that for particular accounts? Is it high or low? Some accounts will have much higher effort, some accounts have much lower, and we're looking for the ones that have low effort and high returns, because they're the most profitable, right? But then this is on a butcher's paper. We write a whole bunch of our clients' names onto post-it notes, and we post them based on the matrix, based on how much effort we put onto them, how much the retainer value is worth. And then what we ended up with was all the ones in the quadrant where it's low effort and high return. There was a whole bunch of companies in that quadrant. We got all the main attributes of that quadrant, and then we analyzed that those attributes, and we go, what are our strengths and weaknesses, our capability-wise, from a delivery point of view? And then the people in this particular quadrant, there are a lot of attributes, features that are common within the people in here. What are they looking to solve? How can we provide the value as quickly as possible for that particular quadrant? And it's a marriage between how we create value, the most consistency, and with the least time, to the people that need it the most, based on our capabilities.
Yeah.
And that's where we choose to play. Anywhere else, we kind of say, if it's like low return, high effort, we're just going to go, look, let's try to get them off our client list somehow, make it very difficult for them to work with us, or whatever the case is.
Refer them to somebody else. Refer them to your competitors.
Yeah. And know that, in the future, anyone that has these kind of attributes, make sure that we disqualify them. And then anyone in this particular quadrant, if they have these attributes, they look like they're the ideal client. Let's position our offering so that it talks to these people based on our capabilities.
What are some of the things you are excited about the future when it comes to either marketing, whether it's the future of your business? Because like I said, you've had... what I've enjoyed about like watching your journey is you've managed to intersect across industries, and you've, through the training you do with Showcase SC and the different organizations you offer your training and reach out to different businesses. What are some of the things you are excited about looking forward?
I'm very grateful and lucky that I've had the opportunity, the privilege to spend a lot of time with very, very good people. But then there are some people in particular that recently I've spent a lot more time in the last few years, because they've become my board of advisors. And these people have all ran very, very successful companies, either now, currently, or in the past, where they've exited companies and businesses that employed thousands and thousands of people. So they have a lot of wisdom and a lot of knowledge. But one of the things that I'm really excited about is because I spent so much time with them, they challenged me to think much, much bigger. So we had this thing where we said, we're going to turn Marketeers into $1 billion company, right? And when I said it the first time, I never really thought, how the heck is that going to happen? But then the more I spend time with them, and because they're sitting in on our advisory board meetings, we're starting to formulate a plan to reach that. And it's becoming a lot more clear, and it's becoming a lot more, okay, it's visible. It's not impossible. It's possible. and that's exciting because they challenge your thinking. They make you think much bigger, and then don't just make you dream, but they make you plan for it as well. And all of a sudden now we're like talking about, okay, what do we need to become as a company to be like that? And it's no longer, you know, a digital marketing agency. How can we become a management consulting, or evolve into a management consulting company? Or, you know, there's all of these different ways of thinking that has really changed me as a person in the last 2 years. And it's really exciting because I'm communicating that back to the team, and the team are seeing that and they're like, wow, okay, this vision is really grand, but we're not just saying it, we're actually backing it up with action, and that's exciting.
That's exciting, yeah. Obviously, mentorship has played a very big role. One thing I forgot to touch on, and I wanted to touch on, I noticed at some point in time you started the second production company. How has that been with juggling two different companies, or has it been a case of like, well, one does provide, like they are complementary, it almost feels like running the same thing?
I've tried in the past to run a company that was a completely different lane.
Yeah.
And we're talking about like teeth whitening, right?
Oh, wow.
To a point where the teeth whitening business is sold, a lot of people don't know this, it sold 30,000 units in its first year to 50 different countries.
Wow.
$1 million plus US dollars in the first year alone. But it was a completely different lane. I had no passion about teeth whitening. I had a guy in Sydney that used to be part of the marketing team, and he did all the research and development. He helped create this product. He helped formulate the product, and we just helped with the distribution. But we came into business together, and what I learned from that is that yes, you can grow a business to a certain point, but if you're not passionate about it, you don't give it as much attention as you would normally give it, right? And so at some point it started dropping off. And then the company that, you know, now we're rolling other businesses into one. In fact, we're in the process right now of rolling another business under the ME group.
Oh, are you acquiring or?
So we're merging them.
Oh, awesome.
Some of them are, there's been ones where we acquired with money. There's been ones where we acquired with, you know, other
creative ways,
other equity. But what we're doing now is we're rolling complementary businesses, and we're seeing like real talents within those existing entities already, so that we're just providing the support, the strategy, and we're plugging that into and our ecosystem into those businesses to allow them to grow. But they all complement each other. So if we sell one, we can cross-sell pretty much all of them. And they've all got like good leadership structures in place that could help build by themselves. So it's not just reliant on me. Because if I had to be part of it, I just don't have enough bandwidth.
Have you found it hard to, as you roll up different companies, have you found it hard to do the integration? Because I think that's where a lot of people struggle with when you acquire a company or do some mergers. That integration piece, obviously they've got a different culture, different way of doing things.
Yes.
And then here you are, you methodically spend the last 18, 19 years of your life building this engine, building this ecosystem, building this platform that has allowed you to scale. And then you're like, all right, let's throw a few spanners in the work here. How's been the integration process for you?
It's extremely difficult. I underestimated it at the beginning. I thought, yeah, we'll get this done. Like, it'll be good in 6 months. Yeah. No, it took like 2 years, I reckon.
Yeah.
But we learned a lot from it. Luckily, our earlier ones had very small teams.
Yeah.
And so it was a lot easier. And we just used that as training grounds for us to learn more about it. And now it's like anybody that we roll up, they're going to bring them into the office. We're going to get them to work together with the other teams. They're going to be talking regularly with the other teams. They're going to be part of the social community when the social committee plans for any events. They bring those people in as well. So it feels together like a family. When we're going to lunch or walking to lunch and they're talking about certain projects, and you wouldn't get that if they're working separately, right? It got to a point where like we recently hired another person at our video production company, and got everyone in the company for each entity to stop working for half an hour, go upstairs into our lunchroom. They bought, the social committee bought cakes and cupcakes just to welcome the first day of work for this person in the video production company, right? And so it's that team, that culture integration is really, really important to me. And then there's also the process integration. How do we integrate so that it's a natural cross-sell without feeling like it's being upsold, without clients feeling like they're being upsold. Everything feels natural as part of the process. And that's all, just through trial and error, through just discovery process, to a point now that we're looking at some point in the shorter future, looking at national expansion. And one of my mentors, one of the people on my board is a man named Andrew Downs, and he's the owner of Sage Automation.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
700 something employees at the moment, but they've got offices all around the country and other countries too. And what he taught me is that when he first opened the Victorian office, the Melbourne office, he thought that he could just hire people that he felt had the values alignment, had the skills, and that culture would be able to, he could create the culture over there. But it didn't work out the way he thought, he planned. And it wasn't until one of his, he called it his lieutenants, but one of the guys that has been working with him for 30 years, made the sacrifice to go to Melbourne and live in Melbourne with his move to Melbourne with his family and live there for I don't know how long. But he was the one that was able to bring the culture of the Adelaide office over to Melbourne. And now Melbourne's doing really, really well. But that's something that I took away from him. When we start opening offices around the country, I want to make sure that we've got like some of our earlier employees to be able to dedicate their time to go over there and spread the culture, because the culture is very important. I think if there's anything that the competitors can't copy, it's our culture.
What's been your strategy to finding those people, the mentors? What's been your approach to finding, maybe even vetting them, maybe make sure that you got the right people on your seat to advise you?
Okay, first you got to be aware of them. And so in order to be aware of them, what I find most effective is just to be at different events. The paid events are much better than the free events, by the way. But that exposes you to, who are the movers and shakers. And so first you're aware of them. Second is just got to reach out. A lot of these people aren't as scary as you think. Right? And so they want to help, but a lot of people are too worried about asking. And so they don't do anything, they don't reach out at all. Reach out. And then the third thing is, and this is taught by my mum, when I was in school, my mum would never let me go out of the house with my friends if I didn't have enough money to pay for everyone. So she was always like, even if you don't pay today, make sure you have enough money to pay for everyone. She's always she's a very generous lady, extremely generous, and she's always of the belief that, hey, you give first without expecting anything in return. Eventually you're going to build their trust and they're going to want to give back, right? And so that's always been my philosophy around life and in business as well. And so when I reach out to these people, the ones that do say yes for coffee or for lunch or for dinner or whatever, I make sure that I provide as much value as I think in terms of, okay, how can I add most value to them? And when you do it consistently enough, they don't become just your acquaintance, they become your friend. And now it's like our relationship, like the person that I just spoke to you about, our relationship is so close now that it's almost like father-son type relationship.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's really, really close. But awesome. You just be a good person and be consistent and be authentic about it. Don't be someone you're not.
Based on everything we've talked about and the things you've recommended to people, if you had to sort of leave them with, these are the 3 points from the things that I've learned from the last couple of decades of doing this. If you focus on these 3 things, if you had to boil it down to 3 things that you'd recommend someone to focus on if they want to scale their business without losing their mind, what would that be?
Don't forget about family. So don't get so focused on work that you forget your family. Look at your people as an investment, as a long-term investment, not a short-term investment. So don't look at them as a profit center. Look at it as a long-term investment, and find people that have done what you want to do and learn from them. Those are probably the top 3.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate. What's the best way for people to follow, connect with you?
Connect with me on LinkedIn.
Yes.
Binh Nguyen. Yeah, that's probably the best place.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Yeah. Thank you.
Good chat. Thank you, John.
Thank you.